Welcome to Part 2 of Simon Ghost Riley's story per the original Modern Warfare timeline. During the final events of Part 1 in 2011, Imram Zakhaev, once a black arms dealer, later turned the leader of the Russian Ultranationalist Party, initiates a civil war by orchestrating the assassination of Arabian President Yasser al-Fulani. The leading members underneath Zakhaev include his son, General al-Assad, and Zakhaev's protege, Vladimir Makarov, who remains mostly in the shadows. They were known as the Four Horsemen. Within months of al-Fulani's execution, Zakhaev, his son, and al-Assad have all been killed, but the ultranationalist movement does not die. Makarov keeps it on life support while making Zakhaev a national martyr. The ultranationalist party inevitably gains control of Russia. They name landmarks off of Zakhaev, including an airport in Moscow, and the movement inspires Russian nationalist terrorism abroad. In 2012, a Ukrainian grade school is overtaken by ultranationalist terrorists. They take hostages. Ghost goes in alone to avoid triggering hostage executions. He lets himself be captured. The terrorists threaten to kill a hostage every hour, so to pass the time and in hopes of distracting the terrorists, Simon begins to tell his story, reciting the events told in Part 1. And as he had hoped, they indeed lose track of time. Over an hour has passed, allowing Task Force 141 to get in place. Simon, having undone his restraints moments prior, shoots the lead in the back of the head while he stares out the window. Sniper support from the outside helps him finish off the rest, saving the hostages. After furthering his able reputation, in 2013, he and the rest of Task Force 141 are assigned under leadership of General Shepard to what is called Operation Kingfish, a Delta 141 Joint Task Force operation, led by Captain Price. Price, Ghost, Soap, Roach, Sandman, and Frost moved in on a compound to locate a kill-capture target. After clearing, they find a room with intel, a lot of intel, plans, names, locations, you name it. They also realized that they were being targeted, and the room was set with explosives. Their target somehow knew they were coming and had enough knowledge to set a trap. After realizing their target was long gone and narrowly escaping the blast, they begin on their way to exfil. During the firefight, Soap is hit with an RPG, slowing down the team. Price decides to stay behind and provide cover while the rest of the team secures Soap onto the helo. Price orders them to leave and is inevitably captured. While reporting back to General Shepard the events that took place, Soap demands to know who Kingfish is. Shepard gives him a file and sells him Kingfish as the last remaining horseman, Vladimir Makarov. On August 12, 2016, Zakhaev International Airport in Moscow, Russia, Makarov, heavily armed with a group of his men, enter from a lower service elevator and begin indiscriminately killing civilians. Embedded with them is former Ranger turned CIA operative PFC Joseph Allen, who has no idea his cover was blown well before the op even started, by the very man who assigned him to it. Allen is killed by Makarov at the very end of the op, as Makarov and his crew make their escape. And when Allen's body is discovered, it successfully frames the United States for the terrorist attack. A terrorist attack, no less, at an international airport named after the country's martyr, seemingly to send a strong message, making war inevitable. As the hunt for Makarov is put into high gear with the approaching Russian invasion of the United States, on August 13, 2016, Roach, Soap, and Ghost head to South America to capture an assistant of Alejandro Rojas. Rojas has been supplying Makarov, but they only have the general location of a few lowlifes that work for him. After identifying their target, a firefight and foot chase ensue. Roach inevitably takes down the target, and later he and Ghost start the interrogation. They then pursue and capture Rojas and evacuate from the favela. The information they got from Rojas tells them where Captain Price is being held. An old Russian gulag, prisoner number 627. The only person Makarov hates more than Americans. On August 14th, they are headed for the rescue of Captain Price. The pathway to the gulag was blocked by a series of oil rigs that have been commandeered by Russian forces and transformed into makeshift SAM sites. Rather than simply bombing the shit out of the oil rigs, they have to send in a team because the civilians who originally ran the oil rigs were taken as hostages by the Russian forces. Ghost, embedded with a Joint 141 and SEAL task force, supported by 6th Fleet, heads on his way with the team to the least guarded rig, the Viktorevka No. 36 oil platform. After a brief ride by submarine, they pull themselves up onto the sea-level dock floor of the rig. They take out 2 guards, and they move up to the next level. They breach a room and secure 5 hostages. They then go up 1 more level, breach another room, save a few more hostages, but Soap overhears chatter in one of the dead Russians' radios and says that they have to set up for Plan B. They put C4 on all the dead bodies and find a vantage point and wait. Once the bodies are discovered and surrounded by more targets, the C4 is detonated, and they go loud, removing their suppressors. During the fight, they move up 2 more floors, only to be met with smoke grenades, as the Russians try to utilize their thermals. The Joint Task Force also switched to thermals and continued their way to free the last room of hostages. In the breach, they immediately realize the higher level of required caution, considering that there are barrels strapped with C4. They successfully breach and free the last remaining hostages, and with the SAM site disabled and the helipad now safe to land, they call into Overlord to let them know that the rig is clear, and the task force is then picked up by Little Bird to then be transported to the Gulag. Before arriving, the Navy has already begun bombardment. As the task force approaches, they call for Shepard to order a ceasefire from the Navy so they can land safely and move in. After killing their way through the hallways and corridors, Ghost begins hacking the control system and locates prisoner 627. They make their way to Price, just in time to see him taking out a guard. As Roach approached Price, he is taken down and held at gunpoint by Price. Until Price, of course, realizes that it's his men and he is being rescued. While on their way to escape, Shepard informed them that the Navy has continued their bombardment. As the structure continues to shake, portions of the building begin to collapse, and they feel as though they might be trapped. A piece of debris falls on Roach and knocks him unconscious. He awakes to see that he's being drugged by the team, and Soap is firing a flare for the helo to drop a skyhook. Once dropped, they all connect, and they are rescued, narrowly escaping fiery engulfment. Within 10 hours, Price and the team are now aiming to secure a route to a docked submarine at the Ribachay Naval Base, which is near Petropavlovsk, Russia. Ghost making his way through a snow-covered forest with a portion of the task force meets Roach and Price at a nearby town. Price's plan requires access to the submarine in the bay of the nearby naval base. They strike the base, and while Ghost and Roach provide cover, Captain Price takes his chances towards the sub, fearing it might submerge and destroy his plans of ending the war in the United States. Ghost's vantage point has a visual on the submarine, and once Price is in the submarine, Ghost can clearly see the silo doors beginning to open. He warns Price, but Price himself was the one opening the silo doors, and Ghost is shocked to hear Price say that this was his plan the whole time. As nukes are then launched by Price headed towards Washington, D.C. Ghost is more than stunned. But Price has programmed the nuke to detonate in the atmosphere above Washington, creating an EMP and slowing down the invading Russian forces. The nuke unintentionally destroys the International Space Station, killing its astronauts, but is successful in hindering Russian reinforcement and helicopters, giving the American soldiers a better chance of defending D.C. On August 15th, Ghost and Roach are then assigned by General Shepard to infiltrate one of two identified safe houses belonging to Makarov, where he is suspected to be hiding. After making their way into a safe house, it's become eerily similar to the first mission they were assigned to underneath General Shepard, Operation Kingfish, in that Makarov was not only gone, but the place was absolutely filled with intel, which Shepard demanded be secured by downloading it onto a DSM. During the download, the team are completely overrun by ultranationalist soldiers. They lose most of their team. And after the download is complete, Roach and Ghost head out on foot, but Roach becomes injured. Ghost begins to drag Roach. He then helps him to walk towards the evac site, where they are met by General Shepard.
I got him lined up. Gold Eagles on the ground. Watch for snipers on thermal. Over.
You have the BSF. We got it, sir.
Good. That's one less loose end.
Area is sanitized. All targets destroyed.
Solid copy. No movement detected. 2-6 going into holding pattern.
This concludes the long and tragic story of Simon Ghost Riley.